Okay, this is a presentation about the cover letter, either for a job application or for applying to graduate school. There are going to be some differences between these, and the presentation has been designed mainly to cover the job letter, but I will try to deal with the differences as we move along. First, the design of a letter. I think it's best to have a serif font. That means a font with the little things along the side of the letter, the little feet or legs of a letter. All fonts are either serif or sans serif, and if you look at the words serif font, they are in a serif font, and the other parts of the image that you're looking at right now are in a sans serif font. But I would suggest that it have a serif font and a full block style, meaning no indentations in the beginning of paragraphs, but a blank line between paragraphs, and that the whole letter have a conservative, that is to say, not a wild or innovative look, unless you're applying for a job that has something to do with graphic design or visual culture, in which case you should try to showcase your skills in those areas. The top of the letter is called the top matter. It should have full addresses both for you and the recipient. It should have a full date, meaning write out the month. And it can be either a full date like 31 January or January 31. Don't write January 31 ST like 31st. Just January 31, 2017, if that were for today, for example. And if possible, an actual name for a recipient. Now, I realize this is not always possible, but I want to suggest that if you can get that information, you should be able to. You should use it. Following the top matter with the full address of your full address, the recipient's full address, and the date, you begin with the salutation. You write "Dear," and then Mr. or Ms. or Doctor or Professor. Never Mrs., because a person's marital status has nothing to do with their role in your career or education. Use the real name if possible. Again, sometimes you might have to say "Dear Search Committee" or "Dear Graduate Admissions Committee" or "Dear Sir or Ma'am" or "To whom it may concern" or something like that. But you should try to do a little bit of research and ask around and see if you can find a name, even if it's not exactly the right name, a real name. Follow this. So if you were addressing me, it would be "Dear Dr. Kellogg," and follow it with a colon, not a comma. There are two kinds of letters for jobs, either warm or cold. This means, does the recipient expect it in some way or not? An application for graduate school is always warm because graduate programs are always soliciting applications. But a job letter in response to an advertisement or a contact has said you should apply for this job, or there's some actual invitation, like you met somebody at a job fair and they said you should apply for the job, that's a warm opening. And a cold opening is a little bit different. A cold opening involves a company that you're interested in or a firm that you're interested in, but there are no announced vacancies and you don't have some sort of way in, like a contact that tells you you should be applying there or they should be expecting it. A cold opening means it's coming as a complete surprise to them, and that's a little bit harder to pull off. The introduction should provide a few things. It should provide context, like this is what I'm applying for, or this is the program that I'm applying for, so that they understand that. It should provide some understanding of how it is, why it is that you're doing this, or how it is that you came to see it. So if you're applying for a graduate program, you say, something about your interest in the graduate program, or if you're applying for a job, say how you know of the vacancy or what you know about the company. And it should say something about the value that you add, either as a graduate student or as a potential employee to the job or the graduate program. So you basically say something about what led you to this decision, something about what you know about them, and something about the value that you can add to them. After the introduction, which is a paragraph, there's a body paragraph or paragraphs, at least one paragraph. It refers to the resume or it refers to the CV. However, it does not repeat the things in the CV. This is probably one of the critical mistakes that people make when they write a cover letter. They say, well, here's my CV. I went to this school, and this is my GPA, and these are the classes I took, and so forth. No, no. You don't do that. You elaborate on the resume. You say, as it says in my resume, or as it says in my CV, or in this job, I worked in these areas, and then you elaborate on those and you tell a story. You're telling a story about yourself. Your resume is really just kind of a list of things. You can pick and choose the items in your resume. You don't cover all of them, you cover a few of them, and you highlight those in such a way that your reader really understands what the main story is. So you are elaborating, not repeating the items in the resume. You pull something out, you add more detail, you flesh it out from the bare minimum that the resume probably presented, and you tell some sort of story that allows them to see the resume in a fresh light. If you're saying the same thing in the resume that you say in the cover letter, why are you giving them two documents? You have to add something new. After the body paragraph, which is the longest paragraph or paragraphs in a cover letter, you offer a closing paragraph. In this one, you give them thanks. Thanks for reading this. Thanks for your time. Thanks for inviting me, etc. You give some sense of follow-up, including when you're likely to be in their town, or something about the best way to reach you. Yeah, you include contacts like your email and phone, even though it's already been there, especially in the resume, if you want to include it as well. What's the best way to reach you, and are there any dates that you're not going to be available because you're traveling or out of internet contact? If you've got links to your professional social media like LinkedIn or Academia EDU, you put those links in there. And you say something about the next steps. Now, there may be some next steps that they might want from you. Like in a job, somebody might want something like references or a writing sample that they didn't ask for initially. And so you say, I'll be happy to provide these for you. In a graduate program, typically you would say, these are the things I'm including. If there's a writing sample, for example, you mention that. And then, if the ball's in their court, and you can offer them the opportunity to call or email you if they have any questions, so that if they want to talk to you more, if there's something they need explanation or context from, you give them the best ways to contact you. Even though, in a sense, you're probably just going to be sitting on your hands and waiting for their response, you give them the opportunity to follow up if they want to. For the finish itself, you write sincerely, not all the best, or yours truly. Sincerely is it's a can't miss. Some people try to take more elaborate steps, but you can think sincerely, you can't do wrong. Then you give 4 blank lines, and then underneath that you write your name, and you sign it in between. If you are sending it electronically, I encourage you to write your signature on a blank piece of paper and scan that signature or take a photograph of it with your cell phone and save the image and learn how to insert the image of your signature into an electronic letter and then flatten that file so that they can see your physical signature, so that even though it's electronic, it should be a close approximation of what a physical letter should look like. If there are any enclosures, such as a resume, which there probably is, or if there are multiple enclosures, you write the word enclosure under your, if there's a single enclosure or another attached file, you just write the word enclosure. If there are multiple enclosures or multiple attached files, you write the word enclosures, and you might put a number. So let's say you have a resume and a writing sample and a transcript. You would write enclosures, or possibly attachments, given that it's electronic, and in parenthesis the number 3, one for the resume and one for the writing sample and one for the transcript, say. So the number of enclosures there. The style of any cover letter of this sort should be professional in tone. It should be clear as can be. It should be very specific, and this is again why when you're elaborating the story of your resume in the body page, you tell stories and provide specific instances. It should be reader-oriented in the sense of the styles. You invite people to listen to your story, and you don't make demands of them. Never say in a letter, for example, I look forward to hearing from you in 2 weeks and I'll call you after that. You can't make demands on them. You are not in the position of power. And it should have an overwhelming point so that when somebody reads your letter, they should be able to take 1 or 2 key things away that you repeat or emphasize repeatedly in the cover letter. And please, it should be proofed multiple times. Any job application or graduate application that contains surface errors, grammatical mistakes, and the like, or even infelicities of style, will be immediately downgraded by anybody who is thinking about offering you a job. So you proof it multiple times, you get other people to proof it, you make that thing look pretty and perfect. What kinds of problems can you encounter in producing a job letter or a graduate school letter? Ignorance of the program or the company. Any letter that looks generic to a particular company. This is one reason why you want to find out a name, even if it's the wrong name. For example, when I was applying here, I didn't know who the head of the search committee was, and I couldn't find that out. But that was private information, or information that was not released broadly. But I found out who the chair of the department was, and I addressed the letter to the chair of the department. And that's helpful, because at least that means I've checked their website and knew who the department was, who was running the department. Any inconsistency between your letter and your resume, or an internal inconsistency within the letter, is problematic. So if you say you've worked at a place for 3 years and your resume says you've only worked there for 2, obviously that's an inconsistency. Any error on your part, either grammatical or factual, is problematic, especially when you think about it. If this is for a job that requires writing, and certainly if you're applying for a graduate program in English, you don't want to be in error because your work is going to involve a lot of writing. And by presumption, I mean anything that suggests that you are the person in power. You are not the person in power. The person in power is whoever is reading the resume and the cover letter. Okay, so that's a basic presentation of what the cover letter looks like. All right, good luck, take care, and thanks.